Yeah, but it's like the most amazing.
It's just the second part. Yeah.
All right, Black Horse Troop. Go it's patriotic. Let's go. This is my country.
In that big
This is
book.
my country, and an announcement should be out.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin in about 10 minutes. Please take your seats. Thank you.
What was it? God bless. Thank God. E flat. When was the second? Or second?
Right. God bless is up.
They play a video.
Yeah, we got like a minute and a half right now. Do you think we should wait? All right. Let's hold on. There's another announcement in the video. Maybe we can do this at the end.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin in about 5 minutes. Please take your seats. Thank you.
flag, and then followed by the national.
At 10. Yeah, 10 on the dot.
Play it now. Okay. Let's do.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to General Dynamics NASCO. We are pleased that you have joined us to be part of a long-standing tradition of christening a U.S. naval ship. The tradition continues today as we are set to christen the USNS Thurgood Marshall 211. My name is Brian Jones, and I am your Master of Ceremonies. On behalf of the men and women of General Dynamics NASCO who labor in our shipyard every day, it's my honor to represent them and to welcome you all. I'd also like to extend a very special welcome to those who are watching the ceremony via the live stream. Will the guests please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the presentation of colors, our national anthem, the Pledge of Allegiance, and the invocation. Lieutenant Commander William Hardison, Chaplain Corps, United States Navy. Commander Sarah Gregory, United States Navy, Officer in Charge, Supervisor of Shipbuilding Bath, Detachment, San Diego. Captain Andrew Graff, United States, Merchant Marine, Ship's Master, USNS Thurgood Marshall. Ms. Cameron Tibbs, Maid of Honor and great-granddaughter of Thurgood Marshall. Ms. Janet Paulzine, Deputy Program Manager, Auxiliary and Special Mission Shipbuilding. Captain Cedric McNeil, United States Navy, Deputy Portfolio Acquisition Executive Auxiliaries. Rear Admiral Benjamin Nicholson, United States Navy, Commander, Military Sealift Command. Our principal speaker and representing the Secretary of the Navy, Major General David Bly, United States Marine Corps, Judge Advocate General of the Navy. Representing the Chief of Naval Operations, Vice Admiral Douglas Verissimo, United States Navy, Commander, Naval Air Forces, and Commander, Naval Air Force, U.S. Pacific Fleet. And finally, our ship's co-sponsors, Ms. Melanie Tibbs, Ms. Cecilia Marshall, and Dr. Alyssa Kamens Marshall, escorted by the President of General Dynamics NASCO, Mr. David Carver. Navy Band Southwest will now render honors to Vice Admiral Verissimo. Color Guard, parade the colors.
Salute.
Mark time! March! Ready, halt! Right, face! Present, arms!
Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem. It is now my honor to call up our very special guest from the Thurgood Marshall Elementary School in Chula Vista to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Take it away, students.
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color Guard, retire the colors.
Shoulder. Arms. Ready. Two. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Ready? 2.
Lieutenant Commander William Hardison will now deliver the invocation. Chaplain.
Good morning, everyone. If you would, pray with me. Almighty God, today we acknowledge your master design in all of creation and your authority to direct our every step. How small our accomplishments seem when we are compared to the majesty and wonder of your works. And yet here we stand this morning. We stand with pride before the symbol of what human hands and human minds can accomplish. We celebrate the commitment of the men and women who will breathe life into this great vessel. We give you thanks for the skills, the dedication that will keep this ship afloat and efficiently running through many miles of trackless oceans. May those who lead this ship be granted wisdom in the ways of ships and in the ways of leadership, and give them a tireless commitment to fair treatment and justice of those in their charge. May those who serve aboard this ship be given patience and perseverance, along with a firm sense of their own value as people. But Lord, let not our enthusiasm this morning distract us from a prayer for what this ship cannot provide, that we should each pray daily for peace on earth and goodwill towards all men, that we would live humbly and act justly. We pray that the people of this planet, of our nation, might receive the divine gift of peace, that they would know justice and act justly, and that they would know the freedom of security and hope. We thank you for the ship, its namesake, its lineage and legacy that it carries, and we thank you for all men and women serving in our great nation this day. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Let's give a big round of applause for the Color Guard from the USNS Mercy TAH-19 and the band from Navy Region Southwest. A wonderful job as always, and thank you so much for being here. And how about those amazing students from Thurgood Marshall Elementary School? Let's hear it for them. Principal Ashley, Saren, and parents of all the students with us today, thank you for being here and making today's ceremony extra special. We are so honored to have you all. Before the start of this morning's ceremony, the ship's co-sponsors and their maid of honor were presented with a bouquet of flowers by our ceremonial flower girl, Lena Hirschman. Lena is the daughter of Brett Hirschman, NASSCO's Director of Government Relations and Business Development. Lena and the rest of the Hirschman family, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you so much. We're also very fortunate to have a great deal of family members and friends of Thurgood Marshall in attendance, including his two sons, Thurgood Marshall Jr. and John Marshall. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Please stand. And would all of Thurgood Marshall's family, friends, colleagues, and acquaintances who are with us this morning, please stand as you're able and be recognized. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much. I'd also like to recognize several distinguished guests who are in attendance. The 78th Secretary of the Navy, the Honorable Carlos Del Toro. Rear Admiral Robert C. Nowakowski, U.S. Navy Deputy Commander, Naval Education and Training Command, Force Development. Ms. Ann Zumwalt, President of the Society of Sponsors and sponsor of the USS Zumwalt DDG 1000. Mr. Thomas Rivers, former Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Ship Programs. The Honorable Harry Littman, former Law Clerk of Justice Marshall and former DOJ Deputy Assistant Attorney General. Ms. Rebecca Brown, Professor at University of Southern California Gould School of Law and former Clerk for Justice Marshall. Ms. Elaine Jones, former Director Counsel and President of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Dr. Leslie Carver, Provost of the Thurgood Marshall College, University of California, San Diego. She's joined by some students as well. Thank you for being here. Ms. Ashley Claire Sarin, Principal, Thurgood Marshall Elementary School, Chula Vista Elementary School District. And to the rest of our audience, thank you all for attending and your ongoing support of the men and women of General Dynamics NASCO. Now it is my honor to introduce our first speaker this morning. Please welcome the President of General Dynamics NASCO, Mr. Dave Carver.
Good morning. Thank you, Brian. It's a privilege to welcome you here today to General Dynamics NASCO for a celebration that brings together history, service, and the incredible power of American industry and innovation. We are proud to host the christening of the USNS Thurgood Marshall, the 7th ship in the John Lewis class of Fleet Oiler program, and the latest product of an extraordinary partnership between NASCO and the United States Navy. This ship bears the name of Thurgood Marshall, the first African American appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, serving from 1967 to 1991. He was a prominent civil rights lawyer who argued and won the landmark Brown versus Board of Education case, which helped end racial segregation in public schools. Marshall was also a staunch advocate for equal protection under the law and worked tirelessly to advance justice and equality for all Americans. His name on this ship reminds us that service takes many forms and that truth, courage, and conviction must always guide our mission. Being a ship sponsor is a tremendous privilege, and today it's especially meaningful that this ship is being christened by Justice Marshall's granddaughters, Miss Cecilia Marshall, Miss Melanie Tibbs, and his granddaughter-in-law, Miss Alicia Marshall. Thank you for being here. Ladies, your presence today bridges history and future. Your connection with your grandfather ensures that this ship will not only carry fuel and supplies, but his legacy of courage and integrity. All of us, as all of you made your way to the ceremony site this morning, you might have noticed some other ships in the shipyard. For those of you in the audience, on your right on the sliding ways is TAO 212, the USNS Ruth Gator Ginsburg, the next ship in the John Lewis class of Fleet Oilers. Behind you in the graving dock is TAO 213, the USNS Harriet Tubman. On your left, awaiting delivery to the Navy later next week, is a TAO 210, the USNS Sojourner Truth. Flanking the Sojourner Truth, our repair team is conducting work on the USS Harper's Ferry, LSD 49, and on the other side of the ESB 8 is the USS Hector Cofferata Jr., which will also be delivered later this year. And finally, off to your right, in our floating dry dock, we have the USS America LH-6 undergoing repair and modernization. As you might imagine, a high-level planning and coordination and responsibility must be undertaken to construct and repair all these vessels simultaneously. None of this happens without the dedication and expertise of our NASCO shipbuilders. To our shipbuilders, this is your ship. You built her to endure. Your skill, your dedication, and your craftsmanship are what breathe life into steel. You're the backbone of American shipbuilding, and I'm proud to stand with you today. Let's have a round of applause for all of our NASCO shipbuilders. I would also like to thank PAE Maritime, Soup Ships, MSC, ABS, and NAVC. Without their combined efforts, we would not be here this morning. The collaboration between all of us on the John Lewis class has created a partnership that has made this program one of the more successful ones in the United States. Together, we work side by side on design innovation, supply chain resilience, workforce development, and mission readiness. We've shared challenges, solved problems, and driven forward with one common goal: to deliver the ships our sailors need to succeed. What we christen today is not just a ship, it's an embodiment of American unity that will carry Thurgood Marshall's legacy and the legacy of America all over the world. At 746 feet, this ship can cover 2.5 football fields, can sustain a speed of 20 knots or 23 miles per hour for more than 7,000 miles. She could carry nearly 7 million gallons of fuel, 9,000 square feet of dry and refrigerated cargo, and has the capability of replenishing 2 ships at the same time. The USNS Thurgood Marshall is an impressive feat of modern engineering and construction. On behalf of the employees of General Dynamics NASCO, I'm proud to present the USNS Thurgood Marshall for christening to our co-sponsors, Cecilia, Melanie, and Alyssa. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next, please welcome Rear Admiral Benjamin Nicholson, Commander, Military Sealift Command.
Thanks, Brian. What a wonderful day here in San Diego. The weather is just beautiful. It's not too hot, and it's a great day to introduce a new ship to the fleet. Thanks, Brian, for the introduction. To all of the guests on the stage, I thank you for all being here, and all of our wonderful guests and distinguished visitors in the crowd as well. But I also have to call out a special thank you to our ship sponsors, Cecilia Marshall, Melanie Tibbs, and Alyssa Cummins Marshall. Thank you very much, ladies, for being here. It's an honor to meet you and to be a part of this ceremony. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my absolute honor to represent the men and women of the U.S. Navy's Military Sealift Command as we gather here today to christen the Navy's newest John Lewis class fleet replenishment oiler, United States naval ship Thurgood Marshall. Justice Thurgood Marshall was the epitome of a trailblazer. He exemplified the timeless principle of service before self and embodied the power of moral truth. It is a profound honor that this ship will carry his name, a name that will sail proudly across the world's oceans for decades to come. Born in Baltimore in 1908, Thurgood Marshall rose from humble beginnings to reshape the legal landscape of our nation. He argued and won 29 of 32 cases he brought before the Supreme Court, a record of advocacy unmatched in American legal history. For 24 years on the bench, Justice Marshall was an unwavering voice for civil liberties, human dignity, and the rights of the marginalized. He believed deeply in our constitutional promise. His legacy is more than worthy of a United States Navy ship, and it is a standard we at Military Sealift Command are proud to carry forward. USNS Thurgood Marshall joins the, on average, 160 ships of Military Sealift Command's fleet. These vessels, operated by civil service and contracted mariners, deliver agile logistics, strategic sealift, and specialized mission support anywhere in the world under any conditions. The missions of these fleet replenishment oilers, like the Thurgood Marshall, are vital to sustaining the endurance of our Navy and joint warfighters. Right at this very moment, many of similar ships, and some of this class as well, are out across the 7 seas supporting real-world, real-time operations for our combat logistics force. Fleet replenishment oilers like USNS Thurgood Marshall are the lifeblood of naval power projection. These ships are engineering marvels, capable of conducting underway replenishments and doing that in open ocean while simultaneously transferring fuel, ammunition, food, and stores to multiple warships. With the capacity to carry millions of gallons of fuel, along with dry cargo, refrigerated cargo, and some ordnance, TAO 211 will extend the reach and endurance of our groups, strike groups, amphibious readiness groups, and our independent deploying ships alike. This ship is in every sense the backbone of the Combat Logistics Force, ensuring that our warfighters never run dry and are never left wanting for the resources they need for mission success. At the heart of this ship will be her civil service mariners, represented today by Captain Graff. These are some of the most dedicated and skilled professionals of our nation's service. These men and women are not our everyday uniformed military service members, but make no mistake, their commitment is every bit as unwavering. They sail into harm's way, maintain operational readiness around the clock, and execute complex at-sea operations with professionalism and a quiet pride. Aboard USNS Thurgood Marshall, they will carry on a tradition of excellence that defines military Sealift Command, delivering for the fleet day in and day out, far from home and far from the headlines, but absolutely essential to our nation's maritime power. Like her namesake, this ship represents the very best of American service. Her crew will carry forward Justice Marshall's legacy with the same determination, character, and unrelenting courage that defines his extraordinary life. And we look forward to welcoming USNS Thurgood Marshall and her sister ships, many of which are here under construction, into our operational family. With our nation celebrating 250 years of innovation and maritime dominance this year, USNS Thurgood Marshall represents our enduring commitment to shaping the future of our fleet. She will embody the strength and capability required to remain ready and able when called upon to support our warfighters. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the men and women of General Dynamics NASSCO, whose craftsmanship and pride are evident in every inch of this vessel. To our government and industry partners and the many subcontractors across the country who brought this ship to life, thank you for your hard work and dedication, precision, and commitment to excellence. Finally, I would like to again extend my heartfelt thanks to the ship's sponsors, Cecilia Marshall, Melanie Tibbs, and Alyssa Commons Marshall. You don't need me to tell you what Justice Marshall meant to our nation. All that he achieved, all that he gave speaks volumes. And this vessel, carrying his name, ensures his legacy remains and is never out of the fight to defend our freedoms and protect our loved ones. Today's ceremony cements the special bond you share with USNS Thurgood Marshall and her crew. May that connection endure for years to come. Please know that you are always welcome aboard. May God bless this ship, all who built her, and all who sail on her, and as she carries forward the strength, courage, and spirit of our great nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral. Representing the Chief of Naval Operations, please welcome Vice Admiral Douglas Brismo.
So it is truly an honor and humbling to represent our 34th CNO, Admiral Darrell Caudill, a mentor of mine, a friend. I cannot do him justice in public speaking, but I will do my best to represent his thoughts and those who are performing our duties of the nation forward today. So I tend to give speeches like I fly airplanes. First of all, you have to follow your checklist. You have to do a thorough brief. So I have some prepared remarks, but at the end I intend to take the speech airborne and speak a little bit from the heart so that you might get a reflection of what all of the sailors, merchant mariners, and Marines who are working so hard forward for you all and how this ship will integrate into that force of the future. So good morning. It is truly an honor, and I say humbling, to be here on behalf of the Chief of Naval Operations. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and leaders from across the maritime services and industry, greetings. It is a pleasure to be here with you to include the co-sponsors, future USNS Thurgood Marshall, Miss Melanie Tibbs, Miss Cecilia L. Marshall, and Dr. Elisa Kamens Marshall, the rest of the Marshall family, all who have gathered here today to enjoy this celebration. What a tremendous day for the Navy and the naval service, the maritime industry, and our nation. Today is more than a ceremony. It's a declaration of maritime strength and enduring commitment. We live in a complex and rapidly changing world. As the commander of Naval Air Forces, I can tell you the demand for naval forces, all of us, is very high. Naval aviation constitutes some of our Navy's most consequential elements of military capabilities. As an example, a carrier strike group has served as the nation's premier tool for crisis response, alliance building, and ensuring freedom of the seas upon which our economy depends. For reassuring partners to deterring aggression, our naval aviation assets integrated into carrier strike groups and naval forces can provide our nation's leadership with options that no other force can. The continued operation of these forces is enabled by ships like the future USNS Thurgood Marshall. A John Lewis-class fleet replenishment oiler is not simply another platform. It is a lifeline. It keeps our forces present, operational, and in the fight. Tactics win battles. Logistics win wars. It is a key to our warfighting. These platforms deliver thousands of gallons of fuel, thousands of pounds of supplies to our ships in minutes. The training and tenacity of our sailors is part of our Navy's asymmetric advantage, and the essential beans and bullets are among the tangible items that nourish and protect our sailors so they can keep our ships, squadrons, and all of those who fight at sea. Replenishment ships enable our persistent presence and continuous operations far from fixed shore-based infrastructure. Logistics forces are the unsung heroes of our military forces. They operate quietly and out of the spotlight, ensuring our frontline combatants have the endurance to project power wherever and whenever it is needed. Without them, the finest warships in the world will remain anchored. But with them, our reach is limitless. Fleet replenishment oilers provide not only sustainment, but options to the operational commanders. Ships like this are not built by chance. They are forged in our industrial base, integrated into our fleet, and ready to sail hundreds of thousands of miles from home. The future USNS Thurgood Marshall and other ships like this one represent the vital growth of our fleet, enabling those who stand the watch to defend our nation. To the men and women of General Dynamics NASSCO, your work directly contributes to our nation's security. Your professionalism matters. You have not simply constructed a vessel, you have delivered operational capability, and I truly thank you. Justice Thurgood Marshall demonstrated extraordinary courage in the pursuit of justice. His legacy is one of unwavering courage, intellectual brilliance, and unyielding commitment to our Constitution. Ships take on the spirit of their namesake. Thurgood Marshall carries forward this legacy of determination and perseverance. To the civil mariners of Military Sea Lift Command, thank you, Ben. You will operate it. Thank you for the capacity you will bring to the fleet. You are the heartbeat of our sustainment power. You will sail far from home and support missions that extend our reach and strengthen our deterrence and reassure our allies. I ask that you lead with integrity, operate professionally and with purpose, care for our shipmates, and care for this name with pride. Very soon, the ship will be christened. The future USNS Thurgood Marshall joins a fleet that stands across the globe that is forward and ready and committed. May she sail with strength. May she operate with distinction. May she embody the courage and the justice of its namesake. And may she always stand in the service of our nation. I thought it important, or at least it is important to me on any given day as I wake up, to think about what is happening forward. And whether it be the USS Tripoli, the USS Abraham Lincoln, the USS George H.W. Bush, and the dozens of DDGs and other vessels that operate with them, they are forward today, doing the mission. And on any given day, without honor or glory or recognition, there is a ship much like the one right behind me that is providing that morale, that nourishment, and the necessary equipment and items that any fighting force needs. They mentioned the length of this ship, over 2 football fields. The aircraft carrier, not bragging, but it's a little more than 3, but that's okay. The point is, at 175 feet between them, we have sailors and Marines looking across to merchant mariners. Those we will never know, but are side by side 175 feet away doing dangerous missions on any given day in any weather, in any condition, under threat, to provide those fighting sailors and Marines and our naval forces what they need. And that is truly an honorable mission in my book. May God bless the United States of America and the Constitution whose course it guides, our Navy, this ship, those who built it, and the civil service mariners that will sail it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Admiral. I'm pleased to welcome our principal speaker, representing the Secretary of the Navy, Major General David Bly.
Sponsors, family members, distinguished attendees, NASCO leaders and teammates, military members, honored guests, good morning, and thank you for joining us. It is my privilege to represent the Acting Secretary of the Navy, the Honorable Hung Kao, at this ceremony. The Secretary sends his regards from Normandy, France, where he is participating in the commemoration of the D-Day landing. He also asks that I convey his profound gratitude to everyone who made today happen. A few weeks ago, when Acting Secretary Kao assumed his role, he expressed his 3 top priorities. That was take care of our sailors and Marines, build ships, and defend the homeland. The mission of USNS Thurgood Marshall addresses all of those priorities. And by the looks of her today, we have no doubt she will ultimately execute her mission with the same extraordinary skill, courage, and resilience of her namesake. I would like to recognize the outstanding team who is building and will bring this remarkable ship to life over the coming months. The General Dynamics NASCO team has been a strong partner of our forces for decades, particularly in the design and construction of our naval auxiliary ships. There is a vital link between our defense industrial base and the effectiveness of our fighting men and women around the world. The success of the D-Day landing 82 years ago today and the victories that followed would have been impossible without the unprecedented shipbuilding and logistics efforts that came before them. History tells us the combat success of tomorrow will only happen with the hard work of the shipbuilders, welders, pipe fitters, engineers, and project managers of today. The ship rechristened this morning is just one more demonstration of that connection. To the men and women of General Dynamics NASCO, thank you for your remarkable craftsmanship and contribution to the success of our fighting forces. Please join me in recognizing their contributions. And of course, I'd like to welcome our ship sponsors that we're fortunate to have with us. Justice Marshall's granddaughter, Miss Cecilia Marshall of Falls Church, Virginia. His granddaughter, Miss Melanie Tibbs of Reston, Virginia. And his granddaughter-in-law, Dr. Elisa Kamens Marshall of Wakefield, Massachusetts. And to all the members of the Marshall family, we have sons and grandchildren and great-grandchildren here. Welcome to the event today. In early 2023, I had the privilege of attending the naming ceremony at the Supreme Court for USNS Marshall, hosted by Secretary Del Toro. Sir, great to see you. And at that naming ceremony, one of the sons let out a little family secret that Justice Marshall, I guess, had shared with his sons that he'd always wanted a boat, but that he never got the chance. So today we move one step closer to making his desire a reality, though I doubt Justice Marshall was thinking of a fleet replenishment oiler for that boat. So as a Judge Advocate General of the Navy, it's a special honor to be here representing Secretary Cow while we recognize the accomplishments of Justice Marshall. So in addition to advising commanders and senior leaders at all levels, our JAG Corps also supports the adversarial justice system reflected in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, with its roots in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution. In our military justice system, we assign independent JAGs as defense counsel and demand that they zealously advocate and litigate on behalf of their service member clients. The military's process is critical to achieving a just resolution while protecting service members' rights. And when it comes to our nation's civil and criminal adversarial systems, few in our history ever practiced with more skill than Justice Marshall. As a litigator in early life, you heard of his success practicing before the Supreme Court. It's considered one of the most astonishing records in American legal history. As an advocate, he showed an absolute mastery of constitutional law, appellate procedure, and oral and written advocacy. But Justice Marshall was much more than that. He also embodied physical and moral courage. As a trial lawyer, he routinely traveled into hostile environments where his personal safety was actively threatened. He faced mobs, intimidation, and death threats, yet he never abandoned the people he represented or the cases which he took on over concerns for his personal safety. Justice Marshall also embodied resilience. Early in his career, he often operated without a budget, and just operating on a shoestring with little or no support staff. Traveling tens of thousands of miles across the country every year, he was known to sleep in his car and work late into the early morning hours. He was relentless and dedicated. Justice Marshall was, of course, committed to the Constitution and its goal of justice. So I will share the preamble to the Manual for Courts-Martial, which governs our armed forces, reads, "The purpose of military law is to promote justice and thereby strengthen the national defense, national security of the United States." The drafters of that provision highlight the connection between justice within our forces and the fighting strength of our nation. Likewise, Justice Marshall's relentless pursuit of justice over multiple decades made our country fundamentally stronger. His legacy lives on, not just in the distinguished law clerks who join us today or in the provosts and principals of the schools bearing his name, but in the laws that govern this great nation. In the years ahead, USNS Thurgood Marshall will sail over the horizon in defense of our Constitution and way of life. She will carry the fuel that powers our Navy and our forces operating across the world. She will transfer millions of gallons of fuel and tons of critical supplies to our combatants at sea. And she will ensure that our strike groups and other combatants can remain on station, projecting our nation's sea power indefinitely. She will carry the dedicated professionals of the Military Sealift Command as they sail through contested waters, taking care of our underway sailors and Marines, and she will do her part in defense of our homeland. And may she do all this with the same skill, the same courage, and the same resilience, and the same commitment to justice as her namesake. May God bless the shipbuilders who bring her to life, the sponsors who give her spirit, the crew who will sail her over the world's oceans, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, General. And now to speak on behalf of our co-sponsors, it's my pleasure to introduce Miss Cecilia Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I'll try to do long. Good morning. I first want to thank our veterans and those actively serving in our armed forces. And to the families of our veterans and active duty service members, your sacrifice is immense. I also, especially during these challenging times, and may we also, in our quiet gratitude times, pay tribute to those that have given the greatest price for our nation. On behalf of the entire Thurgood Marshall family, thank you to everyone here today to support the christening of the USNS Thurgood Marshall. Thank you to the United States Navy for this honor, and to Secretary Del Toro, who is with us today, for selecting Alyssa, Melanie, and myself as sponsors. Thank you as well to all the shipbuilders whose labor brought this vessel to life. My grandfather founded the NAACP Legal Defense Fund 86 years ago, an organization I serve on the board of and still on the front lines of justice today. Recently, our president and director counsel, Janae Nelson, argued Louisiana versus Calais before the United States Supreme Court. We also honored to have former director counsel, Miss Elaine Jones, with us today. When I think of my grandfather, I think of childhood memories at my grandparents' house, just being with Grandpa and Grandma, whose name I carry. I was 11 when he passed. I didn't understand death, and I didn't yet understand his legacy. I just knew I was sad he was gone. What followed was a series of formal events that felt like slow motion. It was a cold January. I stood in the great hall of the Supreme Court, dressed in my finest, next to his casket, watching thousands of people file past to pay their respects. I saw grandmothers, mothers, and their children quietly honoring him. I struggled to understand why people who weren't family would wait for hours just to be there. As I grew up and learned his legacy, I understood. After my grandmother's passing, it has become my duty to share him with the world. That means sharing the story of his clients, the people he saw as heroes, and firsthand accounts from those who knew him, preserving his journey so we can inspire the next generation of Thurgoods. Through the Thurgood Marshall Foundation, we are bringing that journey directly to communities across the country with a traveling museum with a tractor trailer carrying his story across the nation. My grandfather received the Liberty Medal in July 1992, one of his last public speeches. He didn't speak of his victories. He spoke of his clients, his frustrations of where America was. He challenged us, and he inspired us. He started by saying, "I'd like to share a few stories, a few anecdotes of people who have understood the meaning of liberty and struggled against the odds to become free. I think of these people because of the risks they have taken and the courage they have displayed. I value them not only because of the people they are, but because of the kind of nation that they insisted we become. I respect them not because of the influence they wielded, but because of the power they seized. It is useful, I think, to recall their stories, not to dwell on the past, but to see concrete evidence of what was in order to gain inspiration for what can be." I'd like to do the same today. As we come together here in San Diego on this 6th day of June, the 82nd anniversary of D-Day, one such story of courage that has been forgotten in the history books is Staff Sergeant Waverly Woodson Jr. He attended the same university as my grandfather, Lincoln University, an HBCU in Pennsylvania. He showed the courage to volunteer and leave his pre-med program early to serve during World War II. Among the thousands who stormed Omaha Beach on that June morning, Woodson's path there had already been marked by both determination and injustice. He passed a rigorous exam to earn a spot in anti-artillery officer candidate school, only to finish training and find the door closed. There were no positions open to black officers. So the Army made him a medic instead, assigning him to the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion. And on June 6, 1944, he arrived at Omaha Beach already wounded, hit by shrapnel before he ever reached the shore. But for the next 30 hours, with his own injuries, he treated more than 200 of his fellow soldiers. He was nominated for the Medal of Honor that very summer. He never received it. Not a single one of the million-plus black personnel who served in World War II received one of the 432 Medals of Honor awarded during the war. Woodson's story was not an exception, it was the rule. Despite extraordinary acts of valor, black soldiers were systematically denied what they deserved. It was precisely this kind of racial injustice that my grandfather made it his life's mission to dismantle. That same summer of 1944, just weeks after Woodson was treating the wounded on Omaha Beach, an explosion at Port Chicago, California, killed 202 black soldiers who had been ordered to load live munitions. When 50 black sailors refused to return to that same dangerous work and were charged with mutiny, my grandfather was sent to observe what became the largest court-martial in U.S. history. He spent 2 weeks interviewing the men, reviewing the evidence, and when the Navy delivered guilty verdicts after deliberating just 45 minutes, he went directly to the Secretary of the Navy and fought until those men received reduced sentences, returns to active duty, and honorable discharges. 80 years later, Secretary Del Toro exonerated those sailors. The pattern was undeniable. The pattern was undeniable. Black men were good enough to die for this country, but not good enough to be treated equally within it. When word reached him that black soldiers in Korea were being court-martialed at rates wildly disproportionate to their white counterparts, he got on a plane and flew into a war zone. What he found was not justice, but theater. What he found were trials in the middle of the night, life sentences handed down in hearings that lasted less than 10 minutes. Men convicted of cowardice while witnesses testified they were lying in a hospital bed. When my grandfather returned home, he reported that what happened in Korea was an old story, as old as Jim Crow and the armed services, the sacrifice of black troops upon the altar of segregation. And he did all of this while simultaneously building, brick by brick, the most consequential civil rights case in American history, Brown versus Board of Education, proving that the same nation that sent black people to die for democracy abroad had no intention of extending it to them at home, unless people like my grandfather forced it to. But what is easy to lose in the ledger of cases and courtrooms is what he meant to ordinary people. When black soldiers were railroaded thousands of miles from home, their families didn't lose hope. They picked up a pen and wrote a letter to the NAACP, to my grandfather, because word had spread from courthouse steps to church pews, from barbershops to front porches, that there was a man who would come, who would show up, who would look the most powerful in the eye and refuse to back down. Communities didn't just hope for justice in the abstract, they hoped for him specifically. And when he got on that plane to Korea, when he walked into that Navy courtroom Port Chicago case, when he filed that brief that would eventually reach the Supreme Court, the people who had been waiting knew something had shifted because Thurgood was coming. And when Thurgood came, the fight wasn't over, but it was no longer theirs to carry alone. History is only as alive as the people who carry it, and the people who knew my grandfather, who sat beside him, who watched him fight, left us something valuable. They left us their witness. Congressman John Lewis, in whose honor this Oiler fleet is named, remembered the first time he encountered him as a young man in Nashville. He said, "Thurgood was a very warm, humane, and humorous person. To hear him and see him during my days in Nashville come to a little church or the Fisk University gym was an inspiration. I grew up hearing about Thurgood Marshall, and the first time I met him was like meeting a legal savior." Jack Greenberg, who succeeded my grandfather at the Legal Defense Fund, said, "He was earthy and bright. He related to people, not abstract theories." Attorney Juanita Jackson Mitchell, the first African-American woman to practice law in Maryland and organizer with the NAACP, said, "Thurgood Marshall was the legal conscience for all Americans, not just Black Americans." The great Vernon Jordan said, "Thurgood Marshall was more than a crusader for justice, more than a torchbearer for liberty. He was a teacher who taught us to believe in the shield of justice and the sword of truth." Justice Elena Kagan, who clerked for my grandfather, said, "He was the greatest lawyer in the 20th century. He had an ability to get to the heart of a problem, to see straight through it to what was most important in any legal issue. He kept his eyes on the prize for his entire career, to use that expression. He didn't let himself be distracted. He had a strategy for how he wanted to go about fighting for the fight for racial equality." My grandfather spent his entire life fighting for a true democracy. Today, as we christen this vessel in his name, we are not simply honoring a man. We are making a declaration that his work mattered, that the people he fought for matter. I will close with another quote from my grandfather's speech in 1992. We must dissent from the poverty of vision and the absence of moral leadership. We must dissent because America can do better, because America has no choice but to do better. The legal system can force open doors and some towns even knock down walls, but it cannot build bridges. That job belongs to you and me. We can run from each other, but we cannot escape each other. We will only attain freedom if we learn to appreciate what is different and muster the courage to discover what is fundamentally the same. America's diversity offers so much richness and opportunity. Take a chance, won't you? Knock down the fences that divide and tear apart the walls that imprison. Reach out. Freedom lies just on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. And now the moment we've all been waiting for. I'd like to ask our events team to secure the striker bar. So a little behind the scenes for you while they're securing it. We strategically wait to secure the striker bar to outmaneuver the tide. So if it's attached to the ship too early, there's a good chance it would be out of reach for our co-sponsors' swings. We want to give them a fastball right down the middle. All right, Melanie, Cecilia, Alyssa, are you ready to christen the ship?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it. Dave, Major General Bly, can you please escort our sponsors to the striker platform for the christening? You can get close. You don't have to do anything else. Yeah. Feel free.
Maybe just call me short. He's called himself tall. I was giving you a good reason. I was letting you tall, and he's calling me.
Please direct your attention to the striker platform. Melanie, Cecilia, Alyssa, whenever you're ready, would you please christen the ship?
United States of America, we christen thee, USNS Thurgood Marshall. May God bless this ship and all who sail in her.
And we have christened the USNS Thurgood Marshall TAO 211. On behalf of the men and women of General Dynamics NASCO, thank you for attending the christening of the USNS Thurgood Marshall. Special thanks to the entire NASCO events team and Navy christening team for a job well done. This concludes our ceremony. Thank you all for coming. I wish you fair winds and following seas.
Always want to see how these look. There you go. That's what it looks like.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Sure. I know.